Hey, so I was watching Integsa's video about liquid piston. Shameless shill, but not really. You know, just FYI. I get you. But moving on. I wanted to talk about like my new rotary design engine. That's basically a version of their engine, but then it's not an engine that's anything like theirs because I don't need to reinvent the wheel to make this be a thing. And I was like, compactness is a big deal. So let's take 12-cylinder, air-cooled rotary for airplanes, right? All right, we're gonna do this. All right, now imagine you're gonna have to get the basic concept like here real fast, okay, as the wind blows my hair. And I guess I just wanted to challenge Integsa today with the wind, with the spikiness of my hair. All right, we're gonna talk about this. Imagine the top and the bottom of the cylinders are combustion zones. Okay, real, simple stuff. Yeah, real easy, just imagine that. Okay, I'll get to it. Now imagine I had an injector, okay? Alright, that combined fuel and air that compressed away into nozzles and a bell, combustion, and it goes out bell housing with a spike, Imagine this is possible for this engine, okay? As I play around more and more with my hair. What the fuck is this? Imagine this, okay? Just imagine, alright? Imagine if I made it so efficient that, in fact, in reality, this would be the only way that you'd want to run your engine. Instead of, imagining that this is super inefficient and it wouldn't work and timing, blah, 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 blah. Just to throw that out the window. We want to really work with me here. You want to work with me, okay? Alright. So, that's the basic concept. Is what it is. Okay, it's 12 cylinders, top and bottom. Packs of 3 is the thing that we do. So, take 12, you divide by 3, you get 4. Well, if you divide it by 4, you get 3. So, you have 3 cylinders going off. But actually, it's 6. 6 cylinders, because top and bottom. That are going off at the same time. One side and another side. Boom, 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 boom. That kind of thing. Now I'm going to describe to you, because I can't do CAD, because, I really can't. I need to do it, though, like, for what it's worth. I need to learn how to do it, that kind of thing. I actually don't know how to, so there's that part. But I can do it in my head, so if you can follow along, and if you understand what I'm trying to tell you, like the gears, the ratio, all the stuff, you will be able to make this yourself and have a better performing, non-reinventing the wheel engine that makes liquid piston get a run for its money. Okay? Alright. Single stroke, no two-stroke. We're getting rid of the two-stroke. No scavenging effects like they're doing for their two-stroke, which mine is a different version of that I have for timing and crankshaft stuff. Or not, camshaft, not crankshaft. Anyways. Alright. We'll break this down. Take a center axle. Imagine that it's the Earth. Alright? Now you take a gear. Alright? Now imagine it's the moon. It's always in step to the axle. Meaning one side is always facing. But except it's not, really. Because it's always spinning, for what it's worth. Except it's spinning with the diameter of the gear axle. Which is double tube hollow. So one hollow, and then another, and then it's got support beams, and then support beams. Because we're going to have a lot of torque, and we're going to want that. Hollow makes it better, because torque is big. You have to transfer it to something somehow. You know what I mean? So, kind of hard if your axle doesn't survive. So, alright, we're almost there. We're almost there. Like, literally, this is how fast this goes. So we're gonna go breathe, off to the races here, and alright, so you're gonna take 4 of these fucking gear plates. They're effectively plates, that's all they are. They're gonna have rotating this plate, creating with a gear bearing as it slides, but not really slides, as it rotates because it's rotating, of course, to this gear that is ultimately spinning and creating the movement of the 4 packs of these gear plates that move every bit of these 3 cylinder arms forged solidly straight into their cylinders. That's right. Their cylinders are going to be perfectly in line. Now, these cylinders are asterisk style or star style, whatever you want to call it. But they are that with a tapering, and then the bottom seal happens to be a multi-part seal. And all that is we have piston rings, and then we have fluid flowing to help lubricate those piston rings that are allowing for that seal to work. Same thing with alongside of the cylinder, along the side, we have a rotating assembly valve as it goes to middle dead center to apply lubricating oil that then goes and then squirts in and then gets sucked down into the gear housing area, which is the crankshaft area, which is a gear crankshaft housing area. All right, now, how do you do that? You have to have this moon gear, all right, we're going to call it a moon gear. That is a 3-gear ring system. You have 2 on the outside that happens to have roller bearings, all right? Those are going to have gears that go off to the packs of the gear plates, all right? Which are field gears, I guess you'll say. Because it's like a hydrogen, I suppose. Why not? Sure. You know. Now, those go off to the center gear. Those are rollers. We want those to move because that is being moved by the cylinder, which happens to have those rollers and those gears that are on there, which has the gears that go and transfer its torque to the axle. All right, now those other gears, which are going to fire the packs of 4 plate gears here, and one side does the 3, and then the other side is getting moved up. Of course, we need to have that. Well, that has to have more than just for this axle, just the 1 gear area, meaning it's only having that one ever give it torque. Well, no, the plates do too. All right. So the reason why you have this gear, though, the moon gear, is because that adds torque, timing. That's its balancing. All right. Every one of them has a piston head and rod, connecting rod, which it's not a connecting rod anymore. It's really just a solid piston phallus, really more than anything. Got a wide part and then a big shaft, so I don't know. Point is, that's what it is. There's no connecting wrist pin anymore. So, gotta have the phallus piston now. I get it. Anyways, this has a manifold. A manifold for the gear packs, the plate packs, if you will. All right, for them to balance off of, and they have to rotate off of, not just from the axle, but that allows for that manifold to be the sump and also the pump that pumps off both the oil to the various areas we want it to go to, but we're not done because we have to send hydraulic fluid from that, which is separated. Yeah, I know, right? Like, a manifold can't have another manifold around it. That's just not, and seals don't exist. Okay? This doesn't happen. There's no damn way. Fucking transmissions don't work. How do? Not a thing. It's not a thing. But they do. They do work. Okay, so like, that's a thing. And so like, but then they get cooled before they go off into, because they're pumped. All right, but then they have a step-up motor, like a supercharger, and then an electric motor that happens to add to its fluid flow rate, because we need that. Because let's get to the top and the bottom. So you see, so cool. That's nice, neat. It's okay. I guess it'll work a little. What about these single-stroke, designs that you're talking about, So take so there's this thing called this coffee guy named James Hoffman. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He did a whole thing about this push-in AeroPress design that it was not AeroPress. Actually, it's an entirely different company. But it's like, where are you going with this, right? What does this mean? As you push down, it squirts in. As you push up, it squirts in. Okay, so. And then you have an outside cylinder, and so if you don't know, remember the axle with the hollow and the hollow, and then axles for this the transmission, they can't be sealed. No, but they can be. We know axles can be sealed. So then we have this thing called fluid coming in. One side's getting pumped while being pushed down, and then another side is getting pumped while it's being pushed down, and it goes back up as it spins. It's spinning, as the spin, the hydraulic fluid as it goes, and torque converts from big flow to small flow, and it goes back, and then it goes, rotate from out to in, and then out to in, that kind of thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of this idea, but it's a gear, it's a screw pump. But then it's a gear, but then it has blades, and then it has one for the fluid, which is the gas, the diesel, gas, methane, whatever really you want for what it's worth. Let's just challenge the good old, the happy guys out there, that kind of thing. Anyways, because he's happy, I'm not, for what it's worth. This motherfucker. Anyways. Gonna move on to the fact that that's the pump. It's not really a screw pump. I don't really know what it is. And as I fucking get distracted by my hair, hair distractions, obviously the worst. This is gonna go out raw, so you're gonna get all of this. Yay! Anyways. So, as the pump screws down, but it's like, this is where the seal here is also the screw that makes it go down and spin, but then also makes it go up and spin. So as it feels up one side, it gives it pressure, it gives it flow, and then it goes up, and it gives it pressure, and it gives it flow. And then it goes over, and it goes down, it goes over, and it goes down, it goes over, and it's smaller size versus the bigger size. So then it always has the same amount of pressure and fluid flow rate into the mixing, burning combustion chamber that goes off into belly end, which really has an aerospace, and then we put fluid through that, so it remains cold. A little ceramic, powder coating ceramic on that, on the side of the inside of the cylinders and the piston skirt, and then of course where that is, because that's going to have a lot of heat though. And it's like, yes, no, but the bell end is not meant to create thrust. It's just meant to hit the top of the cylinder. After it hits the piston head, woo, it goes up and it goes, okay, and then it creates more degrees of torque for the given thrust and pressure that's there. Because there's pressure, but then that's an impact, which gives you a new cycle, a Lemke cycle. That's right, we're the Lemke cycle, one-stroke Lemke cycle. Yeah, that's Lemke cycle. Yeah, no, same thing at the bottom too. Burp. Just burn it down, Die, cylinder. Except not really, because I'm cooling it, and it's cooled. It's not air cooled. It's fully jacketed cooled, blocked style with multiples of these, with the hydraulic fluid, which is coolant, which is going into the waste heat generator. I have a waste heat generator design. I'm like, every time I'm thinking about waste heat generating, I'm like, yeah, no. So this is gonna go and fill up one side, and then it's gonna go and then so basically we have gaseous fluid effectively that then spins, a certain amount of linear generator, spin, it moves, makes a linear generator. But then there's many of them in a fin array, and so then then it gets cold, and then it obviously goes back and then gets picked up and then pressurized by having the spinning fluid that got sent out with the electric motor on one side into this. But then the electric motor is just a shaft, and it spins an axle, and then this thing called a radial. I just call it a circle. I don't know why they call it a radial. I guess they wanted to be special or something. Anyways, So that's what that is, and then it goes, but then it's like, it's for what it's worth, it's fairly efficient, because on one side it's like that's the pump, and then the other side that's another pump, and then like it fires off that way, and it's like, I need more fluid. So then it's like, I guess I'll just impart that degree of pressurized fluid flow into my injector pump areas, which is connected to because it seals. It's like, if you look at a circle, one circle, and then a circle inside of that circle, and then another circle around that side of the, and then that spins, and then there's like a gear that goes off to the rotating, and cool, because there's this stuff called coolant going into it, and it's lubricated because there's this stuff called hydraulic fluid, which is a lubricant of all things. I don't know if you know that. Don't know if you've ever heard of this stuff called hydraulic fluid lubrication, but it exists. So that goes, and that gear then spins a rotating with two. There's one that's there, and then so anyways, point is, one rotates, one the other. It's a whole thing. Point is, then it has a bearing fluid, because it's hydraulic fluid bearing. With the gear, which can change its degree of timing, duration, and outright amount of which isn't lift. So it's like opening, size of opening. That hole got a bigger or smaller, and it was around for this long, or this long, or this long, that kind of thing. But it's only at the very bottom, near bottom dead center. And then you have a little bit above after, if you so want it, for the super high performance instead of the good boy ultra high efficiencies, which is what I was going to run, because I have super huge torque. So it's, I have 6 total things firing. I was like, and then it's single stroke. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't need to burn that amount of fuel, man. Like, most of the time, I'm never going to use that, like, kind of fuel or torque. So it was like, oh yeah, I'll just let it go through. I'll inject a little bit more air at that point, and then, like, let it cool off. But then, like, that heat goes in, and then, like, that allows for it to give me back, like, that increase, and then I can just add in a little bit of fuel as it goes back up into combustion chamber, as it goes, and then it goes boom, and then that gives me like another combustion cycle after like 3 or 4, and then I can exhaust it at the very bottom, and then I can start the whole process again, doing that ultra, but still not perfectly super ultra high efficiency. That's eco medium. I have, let's see here, eco medium, eco high, medium low, medium medium, and medium high, and then high. High is rough. This is like what I am, by the way, the things I'm doing, because I'm trying to do a character in a bit and all that, be energetic. Maybe you'll actually listen and pay attention. I don't have my ADHD medications. I didn't take it yet today. So it's like you and me without the meds. So deal with it, you know what I mean? Anyway, I just wanted to say that, because it's like, you probably think he's high, and it's like, no, I'm a lot calmer on cannabis. So, and I didn't just sit still and be angry that I don't get to do anything when I'm on my meditation. So like there's days when I need to take breaks anyways. Moving on. This happens to have a very cool concept, like as an idea, right? The big issue isn't the heat. Okay, the heat's fine, taken care of. That's just the right size radiator, as a the waste heat generator size. That's fine. It's not about the pump. The pump is fine because whoa, we're not done yet. We haven't fully completed the build. Yeah, sorry. So this is a ram air intake. Take a funnel and then it bifurcates towards the bottom. So we're gonna have a funnel within a funnel. That's right, a double funnel, a double flute, and then they take air and then it splits it and then it splits it, kind of like a ram air. For the scramjets. They take air in, and then they have this thing, and then it goes off to these smaller spots, and they've been compressified. Lots of compressories going on there. But wait, we're not done yet. It's hollow. Yeah, no, the fucking funnels, they're hollow, and I have fluid going through the water-to-air exchanger. It's gonna go over to the front, where the radiator is. Okay? Oh wait, we're not done yet. There's this thing that spins. I don't know if you know about them. They produce compression by spinning, of all things. I'm imparting work energy into making compression. Then I have another funnel instead of a double funnel. It's another water-to-air exchanger that bifurcates several times the air coming out of the spinny bit that compresses it still and high flow rates the shit out of that. But no. It takes it from a small and then even smaller size. So bigger to smaller and then even smaller size. All right. And then we're gonna take this thing. It's called a fucking condenser or what is this? Air-to-air intercooler exchanger? Which version do they want? They call it an exchanger here. They call it an intercooler here. They call it a radiator here. They're all the fucking same. They're all literally the same. Which one do you want? You get it? Anyways, from a bigger hole, and it goes from the bottom or the top directly on. So that way it fills off the reservoir, and then it goes across. So there's a bigger hole, and then it goes smaller. But hold your horses. We're not done yet. Okay, we're not done. We have this thing called vapor chambers. All right, copper vapor chamber, brass, whatever. I don't really give a fuck. And they're not going to do any waste heat generation. They're vapor chambers, so they are made to be a nice little teardrop as they go through. But then they still have fins from the other teardrop, shape, on with the air. And then this just goes on with the air too, producing from that middle area, which usually doesn't get a lot of extra time to spend all of its energy in a thermal siphon-like capacity, using the vapor and wicking to effectively create a greater degree of drop to near ambient temperature for the compressed air into a cylinder. Okay, we have a cylinder. All right, it goes into a cylinder. There's a pressure blow-off valve. You don't know what that is. I don't know. Hold your horses, man. Have you ever seen espresso? They have these springs that go up to 15 bar for their espresso machines. This fucking aliens, man. They're fucking insane. It's just stupid. So it turns out we have these things called springs that would allow for us to put pressure into a cylinder at the right pressure we would look for as we condense it. But then, we're going to drain air out into at the right pressure with pressure regulators and flow regulators. Are you understanding that scuba gear? Did you know that? That's scuba gear. We have that already. Did you know that? Did you? Well, now you do. We already have that. Yeah, no, and then it goes through this thing called detectors, 4 of them. Pressure, flow, temperature, and humidity. We need accuracy for the proper burn rate for the air-fuel mixer of stoichiometric natures. Because we want that. We're going to leak for that to be so good. It gives us so much more clean burning fuel. More pressure. More power. Because we want power. We're going to want power. Okay, so we can burn less and we can do more. And this is good for us. Now, we still have very high pressures that are already coming in, but what we did was we made it enormously more efficient to pump air in at the right pressures and at the right flow rates that we want it to be at. And then we have turbine. This is cool turbine. Goes on shaft over to clutch, and to shaft for axle for the new Limkey engine. It's not a liquid piston. Sorry, I don't have no liquid piston here. It's a rotary Limkey engine. I know, I get it. I'm so shitty. I always have to say my name in all of my designs. All my designs is my design. That's what that is. It's my design. Yeah. Anyway, same thing with the super cool. The engine makes the fucking injectors work. So it's like, there's that. And then it's like I have a pressurized cylinder. So when startup occurs, I have the correct pressure and PSI to make easier. Then it's like, well, I have this battery thing. It runs this air pump. And oh wait, no, the cylinder happens to have this thing called refrigerant. That's right, it has air conditioning. I don't run it while the engine's running, but while I run the air pump, I can condense the fluid and then get this thing called supercritical ice under pressure. Even though it's not very cold, it's not going to get to that point. But ice under pressure will get to that point, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh yeah, and then boom, vapor. I have that storage of energy, and then that gives me a greater degree of humidity, but also that gives me more oomph as it decomposes. That is fuel for my fire, my thrust. If you don't know, that's a thing. Yeah, So water decomposes under the right heat and pressure. Now you know. The more you know. It makes oxygen rich in hydrogen-rich environments. And we get it back, of course, That energy, just a little back, Anyways, back to the turbine. So it goes from one, it's all 24 into one here. So we're going to talk about this exhaust manifold real quick. So equally tube headers, they go from small to big, and then from that to small, and then this one is from that small up to big, and then it goes from that small, and it's kind of like this thing, like a two-stroke engine or high flow resonator for muffler setup, except not really muffler, it's more like just really high flow, and what it does is it traps pressure, resonation of pressure, but it has high flow, and so what it does is it means the back pressure gives me good torque, but then I also have high horsepower because really high RPM, and so it will do high RPM, and I gain that pressure wave that goes off into turbine. Trap in resonator. So more efficient. Without needing valve. Just double two-stroke the things. So that goes into 24 into 1. Okay. 24 into 1. Alright. We're almost there. It goes into straight, it goes into small cone, and then what is this? What is this turbine? Okay, this is not like a regular turbine. What is this turbine? It goes from in to out to back to in to out to back to in to out. That kind of thing. It's a very zigzaggy turbine. What is this? We would never want that. That's too much pressure, right? Oh yes, no, there's a vacuum on one side. It maintains with stators on there, and then it bounces off stators to go towards center, and then goes out, and then creates more torque as a result. So actually, for what it's worth, while it does create, it just makes an elongated, same size CFM, meaning same flow rate as the exhaust manifold. That's right, because it's the same diameter size tube. For the entirety of the size of this, which is, fairly big, it's not the turbine for regular turbos, but we're not done yet. Yeah, no, we're not done yet. So this thing has those stators be sealers, but then, the tube within the tube still exist. Packs of these tubes within tubes can still happen with stators that seal. Bolted together. See what I'm saying? I can do that. And so a little bit of this gets captured as it goes from out to in, and then some of it gets redirected from the center on back out to be a resonator. That's right, it's a recirculator resonator turbine. It goes off to the front again. Whee! and then the next pulse comes in, and then, you know, and then it gives it more torque. More pressure is maintained inside of my turbine. That's right. Yay. Right? Cool. That's cool, I think, you know, personally, me, you know, Limke here, you know. It's cool stuff. It's cool stuff because what it does is it makes it more efficient. As it goes from the outside, that gains efficiency as it will build up a degree of pressure that is always flowing out. And so it creates a pressurized fluid flywheel turbine that has a vacuum that increases the degree of torque also that's on the blades themselves. Same thing with the upper, you know, shroud that also has to be bolted together, because I want that torque. That torque and high flow rate make me happy. So that, you know, it bends down so that way, you know, more torque. Torque is torque. I like torque. Torqueys. Do you get the torque? I honestly thought about just making it several of those tube within a tubes, but then that was expensive and they didn't want to do that. And by they, I mean, you know, if I imagine I had a company, it's like, oh, how much could I, you know, spend and blah, 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 blah to manufacture it? And it was like, I don't care. I would totally do that. That's a counter-rotational, you know, fucking awesome tube. As it counter-rotates, it'll go and freaking create, like, that little vacuum area that rotates together with everything. And then it goes from out to in still, and then out to in, you know, again. And it creates more degrees of torque, more moments, because it has more stators that have more degrees of that energy getting imparted into the spin, creating more torque, meaning more efficient capture of the given heat and pressure energy into work energy, which is great. That's what the point was, you know. But then they were like, but that's expensive. And I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. I was like, 80% efficient. Yeah! Like, literally, it was in the 80% range. It was like 78 to 82. You know, I was like, woohoo! High pressure, 82% efficiency. Yeah! The stators were like, it's 60 and we're good with it. I wasn't. So then I did the whole like, oh, so this is the high performance and then this is the regular what you get. That kind of thing. When it came down to like making a business model in my head, it's like, here! Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. And then like this is just two turbos we stuck together, you know, turbine turbo, out to in, and then we changed the housing to be more oval so it comes out closer to where it comes in at. And then that goes through a little shaft that then goes from that out in to out, but then in to out does not have one hole it comes out at. It goes out, and then it has to go, you know, from that around, and then, or it goes around and then underneath and then out to the one from one side, and then the majority of it goes off to that. So that way I gain two, but then there's no recirculating, and it's well, more efficient, you know, 30 to 40% more efficient, roughly, you know. You know, it's like, but it's only like 10% efficiency to begin with. So it was like, well, it's 30 to 40% more efficient over a 10% to 15% efficient design, and so was it really like super great? For what it's worth, it does work. It does create a degree of increased back pressure. For what it's worth. Of course, the manifold part solved that for what it's worth for the exhaust manifold, and that was just like, you know, doing all equaling tube headers with the whole, you know, double high flow resonator thing, yeah, to just capture that pressure back into the turbine. So that was a way to get around that, and like that improved efficiency exactly 10%. One whole 10%. That was great, you know. It was like all that for 10 whole percent. And it's like, you think that's nothing, but when it's like, oh, let's say it was 40% more efficient over that 15%. All right, you know, like doing basic math here. You know, let's get out the calculators. Yeah, the calculators while I'm doing the whole recording. My computer is extraordinarily slow. It still hasn't popped up. So we're going to do 15%. We're going to multiply it by 0.4, and then we'll add that. So that's 6. So 15 plus 6 is that, and then that's 10% of that, which will be 2.1. So we'll do plus 2.1, which that's simple math of 23.1% efficiency. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually a lot. Like, for what it's worth, that is actually a lot. I know it doesn't seem like a bit, but it is actually. Like most small little turbines, at most maybe get 40% efficient. And it's like my 80% is really only because I'm recirculating the vast majority of that. And like if it wasn't for those like very heavy vacuum areas that increase the degree of torque and moment action on the blade during the whole duration of its turn, while also from the top down to the very base of the blade to make and maintain the greatest degree of force onto the axle, it wouldn't be as efficient as it is. Like, this is like not, like I say that it's pretty efficient. Like, Hyperspace Pirate did like a version, he's another YouTuber, of like a turbine where it's like, oh, I got it to 20% efficient, and it's like, it's not like a turbo turbine for what it's worth. Like, his directly in one side, and it comes out like basically it has to do a full 180. Mine's like, it did a kind of 180. Yeah, it's a kind of thing here. Yeah, and then it's like just a bigger turbo, so it's from this side, and then it go a bigger size, and it kind of work somewhat. It's decent, not recirculation or any of those other cool thermodynamic, fluid dynamic increase of efficiency designs. So it's just. And then I have to get stators and I have to cut the stupid things. You have no idea. Like for what it's worth, to make the in-out work, I have to get stators in there so that way that they create a degree of, rotation for that as it spins outwards. And it's annoying to do, and I have to like create that housing. And then same thing with this one, which is another version where I have to create these little lines on the side of the housing, which create like this with another line, which is like a really really smooth flow. And so as it goes from the out in, it's going to get trapped into that, and then it'll come out with the final, because it's still producing that degree, even though it's trying to capture it towards the center, a degree of loss effectively. And so I have to fire that the stator in along the housing, and so I have to cut into the blades to have this like get trapped and then pocketed that energy towards all the way to the final point. And it's like, it's a lot more back pressure. Like, for what it's worth. Yeah. And then same thing for the stators. It's like all those little miniature stators all have to be there to be able to and then from smaller to bigger moments of action to create a degree of actual fucking thrust and torque energy, rotation, work energy, and like that's like all just at 21 whatever the fuck percent is just stupid. But then it's like doing all of that does make it more efficient, and like typically they're only like 10% efficient to begin with for a regular turbo turbine, and then it's like, well, doing all this got me up to 23. Yay! More weight. Yeah, I know. If I'm gonna go the more weight crowd, by the way, do I have a booger there? No, it's just hair that has booger. Anyways. That's the more weight crowd. If I'm going to do more weight anyways, I might as well make this a hyper-eutectic aluminum that I then cast a much more flexible but also thermally resistant and resistant to creep ceramic around that. That's actually making this hollow. Like I'm going to make it a little hollow for what it's worth. And so that way I can cast that, and then I can cast the other one around that. And then that gives me like packs of this that I can balance and then put together and then have that rotate and be squeezed together with the right bearings and then the right gears that are going to impart it into the shaft. Which, shocker, I don't do the regular shaft thing. Yeah, no, I'm a dick to people, engineers specifically, because I'm like, so you see this thing called a T-joint? There's a planetary T-joint. You see these things called stator? I have to go to the fucking center. Look at all my gears and bullshit. I was like, because more moments of action of torque from the very furthest outside into the center where I actually, and then that goes off to wherever it is it's gonna go to. That's what I was doing, because it was like, yeah, no, that makes total sense for me to do. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna fire that through. Fuck that. 6 and 0. Fuck no, I'm not doing that. Get out of here. Get that axle out of here. I'm not doing that. Especially when I have to have that outside come back in, and then that has to join in with the freaking stupid. It's like that. No, I'm not doing that. No. And then that's a big funnel into a smaller with the thing that joins, and there's a squeeze, and then that goes, and then venturi, 24 of them, but really 6 at once, 4 times. Boom, 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 boom. Get in there, you! I'll sacrifice some amount of the energy, but I gained more mass from the and then some of that heat. Because it's like, well, there's more pressure, there's more density to the air, and as a result it goes through, and then that gives the recirculation design, and then some of it still comes out, of course, because the rear, some of it's captured, but then not all of it's captured. So, that's what that is. But then it gets more and more dense as you continue to fire the thing, and it becomes more and more efficient with greater and greater heat retention and a greater and greater amount of recirculation and more and more moments of torque, force imparted, for that whole layman term kind of stuff, which is good. Big torques. I like torques. I like that thing. Anyways, I've spent too long on this. Then that goes off into, catalytic converter guy. Whatever he is. Whatever that is. Hey, look at the catalytic converter. Do I need it? I perfectly stoichiometric mix this shit. There is no way to get, but whatever. You know what I mean? I'm even gonna recircle it. It's like, look, I'll do the Brayton cycle. Boom. Boom. I'll just add some shit in every so often, you know what I mean? I'll just keep the amount of heat and then use air spring torques. I'll just keep, because you're like, no, it's not a Brayton cycle. And I'm like, no, the turbine and then the compressor. That's Brayton cycle. You guys are stupid. Anyway, I'm not, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know. Okay, well, that's fair. If you do, you do. If you didn't, then it's like, no, that's the Brayton cycle. But then it's the Lemke cycle because, thrust, one stroke, brrr. Die, piston head, die, piston bottom, die. Anyways, that's the whole point. I was designing it specifically for a replacement as a V8 in a van that I had, like a van bus in my mind that I wanted to get. Because it was like, oh, this would be a way. Like, they have this big old and it's that's really hard to get to. So they have this small little thing, and it's like, you know what? I could do that instead. I can get way more power, way more torque. I can do really high RPM, like 50k is typically where that thing typically maxes out at. Like, often it maxes out around the 50k mark. Because, like, piston, even if it's forged, don't, like, go fast and slow down, even with that being compression and so on. So, it's same thing with, the pressure pumps, getting enough, air and an increase of PSI, as it continuously needs more PSI to go into combustion chamber, and so it can do it. So it works rather well for what it is worth. and then it's cooled, of course, a waste heat generator, and then that's going to run my electric pump. Look at my electric pump eventually, you know, that's going to run my electric pump along with my alternator, although that's probably, you know, with enough heat to write RPM, it's probably going to run my pump on both sides of my radial axle pump, on both fucking sides. That also runs off of my cool new, it's Limke engine, Limke cycle Limke engine, I suppose. But then it's a rotary engine that's built specifically cooled, and it's not semi-open. We're going to be doing a version of a fully closed, because it's like it has enough heat and pressure and torque that I need that degree of increased strength and rigidity to the design. You know, that's also why the bolts and the packs and everything are just like, and then squeezes together to where the axle like seal is that you have for your flywheel clutch setup. That's right, flywheel clutch. Still here. Here's my idea for managing this, because it's basically ridiculous in terms of its torque and RPM that I can do with any fuel, basically. Like, it doesn't matter. What do you got? Low grade hydrogen over there? What is that? You got some fart juice? I'll take it. I'll run it off of that. There's that fart juice. Give me the fart juice. I need some fart juice. Get some jankum up in here. Anyways, moving on from that. We'll move off from that. Because it's like, well, this is a gear pack, semi-automatic is like what I like to call it. Kind of like a CVT. 7-speed manual gearbox. Okay, it's a manual, but it's like, so I have my first, which will have 3 gears, low, medium, high, that will automatically try, but depending on the RPM here that we're at, to be in. And then the next one, which is second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh, until we all the way get to reverse. So total 42 gears, because 6 actually, it's just the basic concept. 6 actually. But it's not fully, because like 7th is really more like 3 gears, and then like other gears are 4 larger gears, you know, like to be able to manage like taking a van, you know, through the wilderness. I really want to give her the beans, my man. I want to give her the torquey business. You know, torquey business is what that was. Anyways, that's what that's for, and then it's like, right, and then I have reverse, which is a basic. My dog apparently in the background over there knocks stuff over. Anyways, that's basically it. So I have 2 reverse gears, or 3 reverse gears, or just the 1 reverse gear. People are like, you want more than just 1, and I'm like, you're right. For what it's worth, for a big old van, because it's supposed to be a van bus, you know, for like an actual bus, you know, like that I live out of, you know, and it has like an exoskeleton and panels, kind of like what they do with aircraft, where they have panels, and then they have like suspension cables that are these synthetic instead of steel, but then they're wrapped with like steel and like rubber and some ceramic to allow for it to be a lot harder to cut, you know, that kind of thing. Anyways, then they stretch, and they have like frames for the cabinets that are in there, and then they have pulleys because they're hollow, so that they get stretched over to another side, on the other side and the other side, and so like that way they have multiple parts where they're actually connected using suspension while also using the support beam roll cage that's there. And then the panels are quite thin, but then they have like there's that part, and then this part that's on the inside, and then like they have sound dampening traps. So it's like, think reeds that move and oscillate at various frequencies. Well, longer, shorter, medium, that kind of thing, and then they're spongiform. So like they're able to move, but then they're spongy, and so like they'll trap even more. And so like as a result, they're sound dampening, but then they're also structural to a degree when you do it right. And then then you have like the support beams in between, and then that also allows for air to move through, because you know that kind of stuff for air conditioning, you know, and it was like, oh, yeah, I'll just put the solar panels at the top, and then we'll cool it by utilizing, you know, the basic infrared design. You know, like it goes off into pump, and then that goes off into acoustic, thermoacoustic, and acoustic pump. You know, it takes the heat and it dumps it off into storage vessel of heat, which is to take it into oven and or, you know, burner for electric stove. And I have waste heat generator, so, you know, and then batteries throughout all of the cabinet doors, and the size of the, you know, the mini fridges, and the, you know, insulated and properly, you know, all that stuff. You know, ovens and stove, like everything's basically batteries, and then like has the right necessary insulation and like distance between it to allow for those batteries to be there and still ultimately all be connected to the electric hybridized this engine design. That's right, because the thermoacoustic pump also happens to run the pump together, you know, with the flow pump anyways, all of the cooling for the refrigerators, and then that heat is then used for water and you know, the electric stove, which is also electric stove, but then, you know, pumps the fluid into the coils, which allows for it to warm up. You know, that cool kind of thing. Cool, right? And it's like, right, but then I also have a bunch of these little fiber optics that take and then constructively and destructively interfere a lot of the light into IR and microwave. So then my microwave and then my stove over there, an oven, you can't see it, I'm not going to turn it over, also happens to gain that light, microwave and IR for heating. And then it dumps it into the iron, which is hollow, the hollow iron. So there's like the iron, and then there's ceramic out there, and then, you know, it's painted with the right ceramic on the inside. And then same thing with the fiber optics to absorb that light and then dump it into, so that way it gains the heat from the fluid, but then also the light. So that way it's more efficient. Same thing with the vacuum insulation and then the thermal conduction in the area right there, you know, the thermal and then the flow. And I don't need phase change because, you know, acoustic dumpage into a spot where I want it. And then I have the radiator, which is waste heat generating radiator. So that takes some of that, and then it gives me, and then I have solar panels. And then I was like, right, then I have big boy Changster helium gas tank that has tube that goes into big balloon that then, you know, has hanging beneath windmill, and then solar panel flexible, and then in between two flexible, oh, actually, well, three, but then I have you know, satellite internet, you know, Starlink, you know, that kind of thing, and then I have these things that go off to the sides, and I beat them in, and then I screw this thing, and it splays it out with 4 of these little trowel thingies, you know, that go, and then I beat those in, and then they stick to the ground, real well hard stuff. And then those are attached via cable to the balloon that floats up with all of that. And then I suck it with the tube. There's a tube outside of that tube to make sure that tube stays good. And then it also has all the electricity for the, you know, the stuffs, you know, from the battery and the, you know, the rectifiers and the AC or DC depending for what it needs. And then it's like, right, we're not done yet. All right, so like that then also has a tube, and that allows for the compressed hydrogen. In no way, it's helium. If you thought it was hydrogen, I'm not using hydrogen. I'm using helium. You think I'm using nitrogen? No, it's hydrogen. In no way, it's helium. That's right, helium. Me a dick about it. It's definitely helium. It's helium. All right. Now that gets sucked back in via the compressor as I slowly lower it down with the winches that they are attached to along the sides of the bus. Pulley, you know, and then the one, and then, so I have 4 anchor points, and then it goes up, and so it's very stable, is what I'm trying to get across. And the solar panels are fine. you know, and it has solar panels up there. There's a lot of electricity being generated. We're starting to get it. Oh, thank you. You are, yeah. Yeah, with my big behemoth torque monster of a rotary engine. My electric motor that has an all-wheel drive. It's 4 in the rear, two axles in the rear that are independent link suspension, torque vector, locking differential stuff, and then same thing in the front. Then I have the front, you know, front. Get the 2 in the front and the 4 in the rear. Got 6-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, all independent, all the things that makes it really able to rock crawl. So I can go out there. Yeah. Woo. Anyways, that was the concept for this engine. It was like, right, I need to make this fucker go. This thing's so heavy. Even if I use aircraft techniques to make it lighter with these panels that are effectively carbon and, well, not carbon fiber, they're nylon and then synthetic fibers with the right epoxy, and then like they're tensioned with these other ones that are inside of them that are there to just like be wrenched, and then like we have a big old screw along where the doors are that we basically crank and then pre-tension them. So that way that like they're really, really strong, and same thing with the, you know, the rest of it. And then we have the exoskeleton chassis cock thing. That's basically that, you know, monocoque chassis thing, you know, right? But then like that, and so and then, you know, there's sections, of course, but then they're definitely held together. They're sealed for what it's worth. They're structurally a part of each other. Yeah, I know, right? Like, and so they're welded or something. I was like, man, no, they slide within and then they latch. So we go down and then we go over and then we go down and up. Yeah, so down, back, down, up. You know, that kind of thing. Oh, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, and then they're stuck together, and then we put in some epoxy, and then we tension that, and then we do the next one, and then we do the next section, and we do the next section, and we do the next section. So they're very well tensioned, a part of each other, but then they can be taken apart. That cool stuff, you know? They're really not willing to be bent, you know, like they're, you know, I mean, actually, but they are, though, because they're fairly thin for what it's worth, and they're light, you know, and then they're tensioned, and then they have the you know, the roll cage, tensioned roll cage things, suspension tension roll cage thing, you know, that's really strong at being able to take any roll. Even the vertical, which I don't know how you did that, but okay, you can do that. It's real easy to do it one way. Boom, boom. How'd you do that? How'd you do that? I don't know, but that's, you know, if you managed it, you know. Don't go trying or anything. Anyways, that was the point of that particular idea that I had. I was like, look, I need a rotary that's still a big boy. It's 5-inch bore, 7-inch stroke. I wanted torque. You know, I wanted torque. I want the torque. I got the torque at the top. I got the torque at the bottom. I got the fucking single stroke limpy cycle. I got the torque. You know, I want torque. And I got the 7-speed 42 forward gears, and then, you know, the one reverse, which is technically a couple of reverses, but you know, you need the picture. It's kind of like a CVT, but then I have to select the gears, and I don't have to put it into low, medium, high. I just go into first, and then it does it automatically, and then second, and then it does it automatically. You know, there's so many like semi-truck drivers that'd be like, hey, could we maybe do this? You know, like, I would love to not have to switch 18 gears, dude. How are you doing that? I was like, well, the answer is, unsurprisingly, it's a version of CVT. It's a version of CVT, so it uses the cone, but then the gear is the cone kind of thing, and so then it slides forward as it goes to a certain RPM, and then it'll change its ratios based upon that, and so like they're cone gears effectively, instead of like you need a gear in between. They're just gears that are cones that will just slide in between. But they have very specific areas where they do it. And so they have to have like this little slight like moment where they're not technically engaging that part yet. And then they engage that. And so what that means is like the gears also expand and contract while they're doing that. So as they switch, like they'll expand, and then they'll have that moment while they're engaging, but they're still running off the one gear, and then they contract. And then it makes that gear suddenly that gear. So we have 3 to 6 gears, really, for those cone gears that expand and contract. And that automatically does it based upon the RPM, which is spinny stuff that then pulls it and then slowly, goes back to whatever, RPM. So spinny, and then pulls it forward and then shrinks it back. Like the train valve. When it spins, it opened up the valve and then it lessened the pressure in the cylinder. And then it got more pressure as it spun less. And went down or up. That thing. That's what I'm doing. And that's what's going on there. That's how I did that. That's how that gear pack works. And that's also why it's so damn efficient. It's 93% efficient. So it's not 98 or 99 like, any of them. But then I don't waste any of those times having to switch as much. Yeah. And then it was like, right, then I have gears on this whole other thing for the transfer box. Where like, this is like 20 and 80, and then that's split into 40, and then there's 20 and 20. You know what I mean? Right, yeah, and then 20. But then it's like, right, there's hydraulic fluid that runs through the axle. It's a pump, if you don't know. And then that one then spins and then changes gears and the engagement of the, not the so much vectoring here, the torque vectoring, It does something similar. Wait 1 second. Alright. Using the hydraulic fluid pressure, we happen to gain a change to the same kind of conical gears that we're talking about in the ratio. And so like this has a regular differential, gear that goes to that. And then that pump will then impart its own energy into those gears and then spin them, and then that has to go to that. And then it has to spin it back. So I'm cooling the gears, lubricating the gears, but also changing its gear ratio for the axle part, but then also that axle to the wheel as well. So like that will impart its own degree of energy, and it's a decent amount actually, as the axles are fairly big and they're hollow, and then they're needing to be a pump, and then that sends it to that, and then it has to have a return line, which is fine. I could do a return line, but then it's a cave style kind of like bottom with these other little slats or whatever slabs that are over the given independent link suspension, so that way like that gets saved, and we have a little bit of downforce as we travel. It's quite teardroppy shape because we have these little flanges, I like to call them feathers, flange feathers that then are spring steel, but then they're not so much that. Anyways, they have a couple of these downward vortexy curves towards the center, and then the rest of it tends to just trail off, and so that way, and then the exhaust goes off into that bottom area to the top, and then fires inward towards the direction of that as a diffuse kind of like. I know, it was a big puff. Anyways, that allows for it to then have that lower pressure zone massively reduced, and then we have the and so they're skid plates. I meant for them to be skid plates, but then they're also slightly downforcey diffuser stuff, slight. But it's mostly just for skid plates because it's meant to go over into rocky terrain, off-road stuff, so that I can live out there for a while and have fun. Because I can live inside my bus van thing out there, which is not really an RV. It's more of a bus, less van. The original concept started off as a van because it was like, well, this fucking tiny little short nose, and then like all of that's really right here where the console is. I could put so much fucking rotary in that bad boy. Like there's nothing saying I can't do that. I could totally do that. I just need to freaking cool it. And then that one turned into like water jacketing, you know, with copper cable around those air cooling areas. And then like putting it into a radiator, you know, through like the correct kind of like multi-stage pump. Because I kind of need like one pump that then pushes that through, and then another that sucks it back up and then goes into the radiator. And then like thermal epoxy effectively. So that way it would actually, you know, cool the damn thing with enough contact and then brazing effectively. So that way I had, you know, some degree of cooling happening. You know, and then that one went into like, oh, they're not really meant for transmissions, you know, for clutch flywheels. And it was like, yeah, no, but I can get a pulley. But then that was super inefficient, and I didn't like that. So then I made this. Anyways, they're here. He's doing.